Keke stood frozen in the grand living room of his mother-in-law's mansion in Lagos, the echo of her words still cutting through him. Zanille Dlamini, with her sharp eyes and ever-present air of superiority, had just humiliated him in front of everyone. "You are nothing but a burden, Tay. My daughter deserves better," she had spat, her voice dripping with disdain. The room, filled with polished furniture and expensive art, suddenly felt suffocating. Tay's chest tightened, but he didn't respond. He simply turned, walked out quietly, and closed the door behind him, letting the words sink deep. Outside, the evening city buzzed with life, neon lights reflecting off wet streets after a sudden rain. Tay leaned against a lamp post, the weight of rejection pressing on him, but inside, something ignited. He whispered to himself almost defiantly, "One day, you'll see what I can do." That small sentence carried more than anger. It carried a promise to himself, to his wife Amina, and to every patient he dreamed of helping. Despite his modest background and the limited resources he had, Tay refused to let Zanille's words define him. He remembered the long nights studying, the endless shifts at the local hospital, and the countless patients whose lives depended on him. Each small victory had built his skills, his reputation, and his belief in what he could achieve. Tay's mind raced with ideas, not for revenge but for impact. He envisioned a hospital wing where the sickest could receive care, where children could survive, and families could hope. Walking through the bustling streets, he felt a strange mix of humility and determination. He wasn't just angry, he was inspired. Zanille's words, meant to belittle him, had ignited a fire. Every look of doubt he had endured, every scoff from those who thought he was too small to matter, became fuel. Tay knew the road ahead would be tough, funding challenges, skepticism, bureaucratic walls, but he no longer feared them. That night, under the city lights, Tay made a silent vow. He would rise not for approval, not for status, but for purpose. And one day the world, including Zanille, would see his worth reflected in every life he touched. Tay walked on, head held high, heart set on a future only he could build. Tay Keke had never come from wealth. Born in a small Lagos neighborhood, he grew up in a modest home where every naira counted. His father ran a tiny pharmacy, and his mother sold homemade food to support the family. From a young age, Tay knew he wanted more, not for luxury, but to make a real difference. He dreamed of becoming a doctor, of saving lives, and giving hope to those who had none. Every night, he studied under the dim light of a single bulb, memorizing medical textbooks, learning from every opportunity, determined to rise above his circumstances. When Tay met Amina Dlamini, it was like fate. She was kind, intelligent, and shared his desire to help others. But Amina came from a completely different world. Her mother, Zanille Dlamini, was a woman of immense wealth and status, obsessed with appearances and the perfect social image. She had always envisioned a son-in-law who matched her expectations, a man with influence, money, and pedigree. Tay, hard-working and talented but with little to show materially, did not fit that vision. Yet love proved stronger than prejudice. Tay and Amina married quietly, despite Zanille's protests, her warnings, and her constant disapproval. Every wedding invitation, every family gathering became a test of his patience and resolve. Through it all, Tay had Kojo Mensah, his childhood friend and mentor. Kojo had seen Tay's dedication, his sacrifices, and his relentless pursuit of excellence. He believed in Tay when others doubted him, often reminding him, "Your background doesn't define your future. Your heart does." Kojo was the steady hand guiding him, giving advice on navigating challenges, and cheering him on when the weight of criticism felt unbearable. Family gatherings were the hardest. Zanille never missed an opportunity to belittle him in front of relatives and guests, questioning his choices, his career, and even his love for Amina. Tay would remain polite, smiling when he needed to, silently building his inner strength. Each insult, each dismissive remark became fuel, a reminder that he needed to prove his worth, not to Zanille, but to himself. He envisioned a life where his work, his vision, and his dedication would speak louder than words, where respect would be earned through action, not demanded through wealth or status. Every struggle, every challenge, every whisper of doubt only made Tay more determined. He wasn't just dreaming of a better life for himself. He was building the foundation for a legacy, one that would eventually silence critics and uplift countless lives. The charity hall glittered with chandeliers, the hum of polite conversation filling the air. Teo Keke stood near the entrance, dressed neatly, his hands slightly trembling, not from nerves but from anticipation. He had come to support a cause he believed in deeply, helping children in underserved communities get proper medical care. He had spent months volunteering, saving, and quietly learning how to make a difference. Tonight was meant to be a step forward, a way to show that even someone like him could contribute meaningfully. But Zenil Dlamini had other plans. As soon as Tay approached, her eyes narrowed, and her words cut through the ambient chatter like a knife. "You can't even manage your own life, let alone help others," she sneered, her voice loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Heads turned, murmurs rippled through the crowd, and Tay felt a flush of humiliation rise up his neck. Amina, standing silently beside her mother, felt torn. She wanted to defend her husband, but the tension was thick, and she feared escalating the confrontation. She bit her lip, silently hoping Tay would remain composed. For a moment, Tay's world seemed to collapse under the weight of her insult. Every ounce of confidence wavered as he felt eyes on him, some sympathetic, some judging. But beneath the sting of embarrassment, something stronger emerged: clarity. This wasn't just about Zenil anymore. This wasn't about her wealth, her status, or her impossible expectations. Tay realized he didn't need her approval. He needed purpose. He needed to prove to himself, and to the world, that his life had meaning beyond the whispers and judgments. That night, as the guests sipped champagne and praised themselves for their generosity, Tay began to plan. He envisioned a hospital wing dedicated to the children and families who had no access to quality care, a place where effort, compassion, and dedication mattered more than status or wealth. He sketched ideas on a napkin, made notes on his phone, and reached out to a few trusted colleagues. Every insult, every doubt, became fuel for his vision. By the time he left the hall, humiliation had transformed into resolve. Tay no longer saw obstacles as deterrents. They were challenges he was ready to overcome. He didn't need applause from the rich or nods from critics. What mattered was impact. That night marked a turning point. Teo Keke was no longer a man waiting for validation. He was a man ready to build, to serve, and to leave a mark that no insult could erase. Teo Keke threw himself into his work at the local hospital with a focus that left everyone around him noticing. Long hours, endless rounds, and tireless dedication became his routine. He didn't just treat patients. He listened to their fears, comforted their families, and found small ways to improve their care. Nurses began to admire his determination, and patients trusted him because he genuinely cared. Among them were Mama Chica, an elderly woman who ran a small community kitchen and had a network of families in need. Obina Adeyemi, a young social worker who helped connect the hospital to underserved neighborhoods, and Nandi Kato, a local journalist passionate about stories of real heroes. Tay recognized that real change required partnerships, and he worked tirelessly to bring people together. He started organizing small fundraising events, using his charm, honesty, and sheer determination to convince local businesses and neighbors to contribute. Every naira mattered, and every volunteer hour counted. Slowly, Tay began to see progress. Patient stories, once quietly shared in hospital corridors, began appearing online. Testimonials from grateful families highlighted how his care went beyond medicine. They showcased hope, compassion, and dedication. Social media began to pick up on these stories, and soon Tay's efforts were gaining attention beyond the hospital walls. Yet, not everyone was impressed. Zenil Dlamini, of course, remained her usual skeptical self. When she heard about his small but growing fundraising efforts and the idea of creating a hospital wing, she laughed dismissively. "A hospital wing? What can you possibly do?" she said to Amina, her tone dripping with superiority. Tay heard her words, but instead of letting them discourage him, they became fuel. He didn't need approval, he needed impact. Every small victory, each patient saved, each donor convinced, each story shared, was proof that he was on the right path. Through late nights and long discussions with Mama Chica, Obina, and Nandi, Tay built a network of support that went beyond money. He created trust, rallied the community, and showed that real leadership came from action, not words. Each step, no matter how small, built credibility. By the time the hospital wing idea started gaining serious attention, people were no longer asking who Teo Keke was, they were asking how they could help him. His vision was no longer a dream. It was becoming a movement, one story, one patient, and one small victory at a time. Teo Keke's dream of building a hospital wing faced its first real tests. Despite the growing support from patients and the community, he quickly discovered that bringing a project of this scale to life wasn't easy. Funding was limited, and every potential donor seemed to have conditions that made progress slow. Bureaucratic red tape slowed approvals, leaving Tay frustrated as days turned into weeks. Meetings with powerful city officials often ended in vague promises and polite refusals. Some elites openly doubted him, seeing a young, modest doctor as overambitious and naive. On top of that, rivals emerged, others in the medical field who felt threatened by his rising reputation. They whispered doubts, spread rumors, and tried to sabotage his fundraising events. One wealthy competitor even attempted to block his proposal at the hospital board, claiming the community didn't need another wing. The pressure was immense, and for a moment, even Tay wondered if he had underestimated the challenges. But Kojo Mensah, his lifelong friend and mentor, became his anchor. Kojo had navigated the political and social landscapes of Lagos for years, and knew exactly how to handle obstacles. He advised Tay to focus on relationships, to present clear, measurable goals to donors, and to leverage the stories of real people whose lives would be saved. He taught Tay how to turn skepticism into support by showing proof of his commitment and competence. Action speaks louder than words, Kojo reminded him, and results speak louder than doubts. Tay threw himself into the fight with renewed energy. He meticulously prepared proposals, documented patient stories, and organized community events that highlighted the real impact of his work. Every small victory, a family convinced to donate, a local business pledging supplies, or a media outlet covering his efforts, strengthened his position. The community, inspired by his persistence and genuine care, began rallying behind him. Volunteers offered their time, local leaders lent their support, and social media amplified his message. The challenges, instead of discouraging him, only fueled Tay's determination. He learned to navigate obstacles strategically, using setbacks as lessons and criticism as motivation. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Support grew, and even some skeptics began to acknowledge his relentless commitment. What had started as a personal mission to prove his worth was now transforming into a community movement. Tay realized that overcoming obstacles wasn't just about persistence. It was about connecting with people, earning trust, and letting purpose guide every decision. Each hurdle crossed brought him closer to the hospital wing that would soon become a reality. That IT happened on an ordinary Tuesday that would change everything for Teo Keke. A young boy, critically ill and rushed to the hospital, needed immediate surgery. Tay, without hesitation, coordinated the team, stayed calm under pressure, and performed with skill and precision that saved the child's life. The family, overwhelmed with gratitude, shared the story on social media, capturing the heroism and dedication that had defined Tay's journey for years. Within hours, the post went viral, and local news outlets picked up the story. Headlines blazed across screens. Young doctor changing lives in our city. From humble beginnings to a local hero, Teo Keke, a name every parent should know. Suddenly, Tay's quiet efforts were no longer hidden. Donations began pouring in from individuals and organizations inspired by his dedication. Small contributors gave what they could, while larger benefactors, previously skeptical, stepped forward after seeing proof of his impact. The hospital board, which had delayed approval for months, could no longer ignore the overwhelming community support and tangible results. After tense meetings and careful presentations, they finally approved the creation of the new hospital wing, granting Tay the green light to turn his vision into reality. Through it all, Zenil Dlamini, Tay's mother-in-law, watched silently. She had dismissed him countless times, scoffed at his fundraising events, and mocked his dream of a hospital wing. But now, as his name appeared in newspapers, on television, and trending across social media, she could not deny the truth. He was making a difference, earning respect, and inspiring people. Her pride was buried under layers of stubbornness and ego, so she refused to acknowledge it openly, pretending to remain unimpressed. Yet every conversation about Tay's achievements, Every mention of his growing influence made her uneasy. Tay, however, remained unaffected by Zenil's attempts to belittle him. He focused on the work at hand, understanding that recognition was not the goal, but a tool to make real change. The turning point was not just the viral headlines. It was the validation of years of relentless effort, proving that dedication, compassion, and action could break through skepticism and doubt. With public attention now firmly behind him, Tay's dream of the hospital wing was no longer a distant hope. It was an imminent reality, and nothing, not even Zenil's disapproval, could stop him. The day of the opening ceremony arrived like a dream Teokeke had nurtured for years. Bright banners announced the event, and the air buzzed with excitement as community members, patients, doctors, and city officials gathered to celebrate a new chapter in healthcare. The plaque gleamed in the sunlight. Teokeke Wing, a symbol of dedication, hard work, and a vision turned reality. For Tay, it wasn't about the recognition. This wing represented the lives it would save, the children it would heal, and the hope it would bring to countless families who had been waiting for help. Crowds cheered as Tay spoke, his voice steady but full of emotion. He thanked his team, highlighting the tireless nurses, doctors, and volunteers whose efforts had made the wing possible. Mama Chika, Obina Adeyemi, and Nandi Kato were all acknowledged, their contributions shining alongside his own. "This is not my victory alone," Tay said. "It belongs to every person who believed in the power of care, compassion, and community." Cameras flashed, news reporters captured every moment, and social media lit up with live coverage. The city's mayor, local leaders, and influential figures praised Tay, calling him an inspiration and a symbol of what dedication could achieve. Among the crowd, Zenil Dlamini stood rigid, her face betraying shock and humiliation. She had doubted him, mocked his ambitions, and dismissed his efforts at every turn. Now, in front of the city and the media, she could see the undeniable truth. Teokeke had succeeded where she never thought he could. Her attempts to maintain composure failed as whispers and glances from others highlighted the irony of the moment. Yet Tay remained calm, humble, and gracious. He didn't gloat, and he didn't let the tension with Zenil overshadow the occasion. Instead, he focused on the purpose behind the wing, the patients it would serve, the lives it would change, and the hope it would bring to families who had suffered for too long. Each word, each smile, and each acknowledgement of his team and community reinforced the message. Success is measured by impact, not status or approval. As the ribbon was cut and the wing officially opened, applause erupted. Cameras captured the moment that marked not just the culmination of Tay's efforts, but the beginning of a lasting legacy. In the eyes of the city, Tay was more than a doctor, he was a hero. And even Zenil, witnessing the admiration and respect he had earned, couldn't deny that he had achieved something extraordinary. After the ceremony, as the crowd began to disperse and cameras packed up, Zenil Dlamini lingered, her usual confidence replaced by unease. She watched Tay moving among staff and patients, shaking hands, offering smiles, and genuinely connecting with everyone around him. The realization of his achievements weighed on her. She had underestimated him, doubted him, and even mocked his dreams. Finally, gathering her courage, she approached him in a quiet hallway of the hospital, away from the noise and applause. Her voice was hesitant, almost unsteady. I never believed you could do it. I was wrong," she admitted, her pride clashing with the need to express her apology. Tay turned to face her, calm and composed. There was no anger in his eyes, no lingering resentment for the years of belittlement. Instead, he offered a gentle smile, showing the strength that had carried him through every challenge. "I wasn't doing this to prove anything to you," he said softly but firmly. "I was doing it for people who needed it most." His words struck a chord, not as a rebuke, but as a quiet lesson in purpose, humility, and dedication. Zenil felt a mixture of relief and shame. She realized that her judgment had been shallow, focused only on status and appearances, while Tay had quietly built something that would truly matter for years to come. Amina, who had been nearby, watched the exchange with a radiant smile. She had always known her husband's worth, and now the world, and even her mother, was beginning to see it too. Pride and love shone in her eyes as she moved closer to Tay, placing a hand on his arm. There was no need for grand gestures or loud proclamations. The quiet sincerity of the moment spoke volumes. Zenil, humbled, nodded slowly, acknowledging the man Tay had become. For the first time, she saw beyond wealth, status, and appearances, understanding that true success came from dedication, heart, and the impact one left on others. Tay, ever gracious, didn't dwell on the past. He had already moved beyond judgment and criticism, focused entirely on the lives he could touch and the community he had committed to serve. In that private moment, tension dissolved, respect was born, and a family began to heal, bonded not by approval or pride, but by purpose, love, and a shared vision for a better future. The new Te Okeke wing quickly became a beacon of hope for the community. Families who once struggled to find proper medical care now had access to life-saving treatment. Children received surgeries and treatments that would have been impossible before, and patients left with smiles, gratitude, and renewed faith. Stories of recovery spread through neighborhoods and social media, painting a picture of what determination and care could accomplish. Tay walked through the wards daily, checking on patients, listening to their families, and ensuring that every corner of the wing reflected his commitment to quality and compassion. Young doctors began seeking him out, inspired by his journey from modest beginnings to a respected figure in the city. Tay welcomed them, sharing knowledge, offering guidance, and teaching them not just medicine, but the importance of empathy, dedication, and service. His mentorship became as vital as his work in the operating room, shaping a new generation of medical professionals who would carry his values forward. The hospital became more than a building. It became a training ground for excellence, a community center of healing, and a symbol that real change was possible. Even Zenilde Dlamini could no longer ignore the truth. She had once believed that wealth, status, and connections defined success. Now she saw that success was measured in hearts touched, lives saved, and the lasting difference one person could make through dedication and vision. Her earlier judgments and scorn faded as she observed Tay's humility, the respect he commanded, and the genuine impact of his work. It was a lesson she could not deny, and for the first time, she felt admiration and respect for her son-in-law. The community rallied behind Tay like never before. Local leaders praised him publicly, neighbors volunteered at the wing, and social media shared countless stories of his influence. Tay had become more than a doctor. He was a symbol of hope, resilience, and inspiration. His work proved that dedication and heart could overcome skepticism, wealth, and social barriers. Every recovered patient, every grateful family, and every young doctor he mentored stood as a testament to what one person could achieve. Through the wing and its impact, Tay's legacy was cemented. He had transformed not just a hospital, but an entire community, leaving a lasting mark that would inspire generations to come, proving that true success comes from service, purpose, and unwavering commitment. Te Okeke walked slowly through the halls of the hospital wing that now bore his name, his fingers lightly brushing the walls, each step echoing with memories of the long journey that had brought him here. The bright laughter of children, the relieved smiles of parents, and the busy hum of nurses and doctors filled the air, a living testament to years of tireless work, sacrifices, and unwavering determination. As he paused by a room where a young patient was recovering, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Every challenge he had faced, every insult endured, and every sleepless night had led to this moment. He thought back to the words that had once cut him to the bone. His mother-in-law calling him a burden, doubting his dreams, and questioning his worth. Those words had haunted him, yet they had also sparked a fire, a determination that carried him through obstacles, doubts, and setbacks. Looking around at the lives that had been changed, Tay smiled quietly to himself. Being called a burden doesn't define you. What you build does, he whispered, a mantra that had guided him from the very beginning. In a quiet corner, Zenilde Dlamini watched him, her posture more relaxed than ever before. No words were exchanged, yet her eyes revealed a shift, quiet admiration, the acknowledgement of his achievements, and the respect that could only be earned through dedication and heart. She had once mocked his ambitions, dismissed his efforts, and questioned his character. But now, standing in the vibrant, life-saving wing, she could see the truth. Success was not about wealth, status, or influence. It was about vision, resilience, and the courage to act on one's purpose. Amina stood nearby, her hand gently resting on Tay's arm, sharing in the quiet triumph. The wing was full, the staff efficient, and the patients thriving. It was more than a building. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to perseverance, and proof that one person's dedication could ripple through an entire community. As Tay continued walking, he felt a sense of closure and triumph. Every hardship, every insult, and every doubt had been transformed into achievement, impact, and inspiration. The journey had come full circle. The city, the hospital, and his family now saw the man he had always been: committed, compassionate, and unshakable. And in that moment, with lives being saved and respect quietly earned, Tay knew the future held endless possibilities, built not on words but on action and heart.